Welcome to Just Asia, AHRC TV's weekly human rights program. Marking the International Day of the Victims of Enforced Disappearance on August 30th, Just Asia this week focuses on the situation of disappearances around Asia. Disappearances, easy way for Pakistani state agents to kill with impunity. Thai government, apathy towards disappearances and threats to right defenders. Indonesian government inaction regarding past disappearances continues. Bangladesh disappearances indicate collapse of justice system. Nepal's justice bodies must provide closure for disappearances and other abuse. Disappearances occur despite law in Philippines. Sri Lanka enacts law on disappearances. Welcome to AHRC TV's Just Asia. I am Julia Roblondo. August 30th is the International Day of Victims of Enforced Disappearance. Such disappearances are frequently used to terrorize individuals, communities, and societies. Once largely the product of military dictatorships, enforced disappearance is now a global problem perpetrated in complex situations of internal conflict, especially as a means of political repression. Disappearances occur in Asia with widespread impunity and pose a grave risk to human rights defenders, including activists, journalists, and lawyers. Pakistan is notorious for widespread enforced disappearances, with involvement of law enforcement agency, including the military and paramilitary forces. The absence of a proper criminal justice system and the failure of the rule of law are the basic causes of the disappearances. State agents find it an easy way to keep persons in their custody indefinitely, torture, and kill them without any evidence. Since 2001, the higher courts have failed to recover missing persons. The military and other institutions accused of enforcing the disappearances have arrogantly refused to obey court orders. In Balochistan alone, more than 14,000 people are missing. The Commission of Inquiry on Enforced Disappearances has more than 500 unresolved cases of persons from Balochistan, while the Balochistan provincial government officially recognizes less than 100 disappeared persons. In Sindh province, more than 1,000 persons were missing after arrest, or their bullet-ridden bodies were found on the streets. Similarly, more than 1,000 persons are missing in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province after arrest during anti-terrorist operations. The phenomenon of disappearances was rare in Pakistan before the 2001 war against terror. The military regime at the time took advantage of the war and used enforced disappearances against its opponents. To learn more, Just Asia interviews Mr. Naweed Senior Researcher at the Asian Human Rights Commission.
This enforced disappearances in Pakistan is a menace which has started since 2001. Otherwise, there were very rare cases of enforced disappearances. But then when at international level the war against terror started, then this military government of General Musharraf took the advantage of taking revenge from the political movement. So this is started in 2001 and 2, and now it has reached up to this point that around 20,000 persons are missing. There are documentation on these things, but many have been found dead, and many the bodies of the disappeared persons were found on the roadside after that torture and also mutilated bullet-riddled bodies. So this is a continuous process, and instead of dealing with the terrorists, particularly from this Taliban and other international terrorists, this has taken, this enforced disappearances have taken the route of this political revenge. And in Balochistan it is said that around 14,000 persons are missing, and one province more, that is the Sindh, from where it is said that in recent years, not during the military regime, but in the recent years, that more than 1,000 persons are missing. So this is also continued in other provinces also. And we also say that we combine this one with the extrajudicial killings and torture. These all are one thing when we talk about the enforced disappearances, because persons are arrested, taken into some unknown places, they are tortured, and then they have, most of the people are extrajudicially killed. So this is a phenomena that whenever we talk of extrajudicial killings or torture or disappearances, that is a one phenomena that is going on. And state thinks that this is the easiest way to deal with the political movements. In Balochistan there is a political movement for their rights, the same with the Sindhi youth and Sindhi persons. They are also the political workers of the Sindh are also facing this enforced disappearances. And we have also found the mass graves of the disappeared persons in many places, particularly from the place of Interior Minister of Balochistan. There we have found the graves of more than 100 persons. That was recorded, and it is said that this, and there was inquiry, but the inquiry report has not been reopened, or it is still not made public. The Federal Interior Minister himself said that there are around 1000 bodies have been found in mass graves. This is a continuous issue, and I don't think that this state can control it. This is a menace, and people are afraid of these disappearances. Military is all over. And but on the other hand, the terrorists have free hand to move everywhere, but the political workers and the nationalist workers are being arrested and disappeared.
Next, in Thailand, between 1998 to 2014, the National Human Rights Commission reported that more than 37 human rights defenders were extrajudicially killed or forcibly disappeared. One prominent disappearance case from 2014 that remains unsolved is that of Porjali Rakchongcharoen, a well-known Karen human rights defender actively campaigning for Karen in Keng Krachan National Park. Billy was last seen as he was arrested by the National Park Chief Chaiyaphum Hitaksorn on 17 May 2014. The investigation into Billy's disappeared remains pending at the Department of Special Investigation and other relevant police units. The latest case of enforced disappearance is that of Mr. Den Kamlae, last seen entering a forest to collect food on 16 April 2016. Mr. Den was a land rights defender from the Khok Yao community, Kon San district, Chaiyaphum province. After occupying their land for 45 years, Mr. Den's community is now facing eviction. Since 2015, Mr. Den was leading a network of local villagers to re-establish their right over the land. Although Mr. Den's wife filed a complaint with the Huaiyang police station in relation to her husband's disappearance, the police failed to conduct an investigation and made no attempt to help her search for her husband. Currently, Frontline Defenders, a Dublin-based rights group, lists Mr. Den's status as disappeared on its website. According to a Frontline Defenders spokesperson, it remains unclear who is responsible for Den's abduction, but the government must be held accountable for its apathy towards disappearances and killings of land rights defenders in Thailand. Moving to Indonesia. In the second year of President Joko Widodo's administration, nothing has been done to resolve the large number of enforced disappearance cases from the Suharto era. According to a Komnas HAM report, there are 32,774 missing persons from the massacres that occurred between 1965 and 1966. Mysterious killings between 1982 and 1985 left 23 missing victims, while the Tanjung Priok massacre against the Muslim community in Jakarta in 1984 also left 23 persons missing. The 1989 massacre against the Muslim community in Talang Sari village, Lampung province, resulted in 88 missing victims. The report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for East Timor states that some 18,600 persons were disappeared from 1975 to 1999. Data from the NGO coalition in Aceh suggests that military operations in Aceh between 1989 to 1998 resulted in the disappearance of 1,935 persons. And finally, 13 persons still remain missing in relation to a student and pro-democracy activism in 1997 to 1998. While the Parliament has recommended that an ad hoc human rights court be established to look into the case of enforced disappearances of student activists from 1997 to 1998, the President is reluctant to establish the court. Similarly, Indonesia's Attorney General is reluctant to further investigate and prosecute the cases of disappearances and past right violations. To learn more, here is a statement given by Ms. Yati Andriani, human rights lawyer at Contrast, after representing victims of enforced disappearances in the Constitutional Court.
Untuk membuka semua peluang-peluang hukum bagi para korban sehingga ketidakpastian hukum itu bisa diselesaikan. Dan yang paling penting juga disebutkan poin tentang ini tidak hanya persoalan yuridis, ini adalah persoalan politis. Artinya apa? Harus ada kemauan politik dari pemerintah dan semua otoritas, dalam hal ini adalah presiden kalau menurut kami, untuk segera mengakhiri ketidakpastian ini gitu. Jadi bukan di undang-undangnya menurut Majlis ya, bukan di normanya, tapi di implementasinya itu.
Perkaranya itu waktu itu kan masih presidennya kan Ibu Megawati. Sekarang kan Pak Jokowi, apakah nanti akan audiensi lagi kepada pemerintah atau ada campur tangan politik dari presiden?
Iya, saya yang namanya presiden siapapun dia, setiap kepala negara dia punya kewajiban untuk menindaklanjuti. Dan ingat dalam Undang-Undang 26 tahun 2000 disebutkan misalkan untuk pembentukan pengadilan HAM itu dibutuhkan kepres, keputusan presiden. Nah ini artinya
Next, Bangladesh sees the continuance of enforced disappearances amidst governmental denial and absence of justice. According to the families of the disappeared, seeking justice for their loved ones requires numerous hurdles. Intelligence agencies threaten relatives for filing complaints, while the police refuse to register complaints, naming intelligence or military agencies. Credible investigation is thus totally impossible in the existing justice institutional system. Bangladesh's freedom fighter and prominent right to health activist Dr. Zafrullah Chowdhury has expressed concern about the ongoing arbitrary deprivation of life.
Enforced disappearance has reached a new dimension, new height in Bangladesh. This is a sort of extrajudicial killing in the name of disappearances, even after people have been caught, without sending them to trial, giving them any opportunity to defend themselves. People have been killed, murdered. Even sometimes when the disappeared person is remained in the police custody, with a handcuff, they have been killed in the name of so-called encounter. And never been the wounded police. In the encounter, there must be the police is the another party. It has been often reported, they have been reported in the newspaper that they have been wounded police officer, but no forensic evidence been provided. So these are all fictitious encounters. This is the really new state terrorism.
In another interview, Sanjida Islam, who has been participating in national and international campaigns on the issue of disappearances in Bangladesh, has analyzed that the dysfunctionality of the judicial system and lack of democracy, coupled with the absence of government accountability, are the main reasons behind the continued disappearances. Sanjida began campaigning since her elder brother and cousins were picked up in early December 2013 by the Rapid Action Battalion. Their whereabouts remain unknown.
My brother Shahidul Islam Shumon was disappeared by the law enforcement agencies Rapid Action Battalion here in Bangladesh on 2013. There were 100 families like me and my brother were disappeared in the same time. Until now, it is growing here rapidly in Bangladesh, and the reason for the rapid growth on enforced disappearance is the lack of democracy and dysfunctional judiciary system, and also the accountability of the government. We are appealing, we are submitting applications in everywhere in High Court, and we are doing all the activities in human chains and press conferences, though we are not getting any feedback, any positive response from the proper authorities. We need our brothers back. We need our brothers back, so we need help from the international justice mechanism to get involved here in Bangladesh to stop enforced disappearance, so that no other families can bear this pain of disappeared of the near ones like us. And I do express my solidarity for all the victim families of enforced disappearance of the world.
Moving to Nepal. The country's transitional justice bodies now have 6 months to investigate some 60,000 registered cases of human rights violation and make recommendations for action. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the Commission of Investigation on Enforced Disappeared Persons have to complete their task by February 2017. The Enforced Disappearances Inquiry, Truth and Reconciliation Commission Act 2014 has specified that the act of disappearance is a serious human rights violation which cannot be forgiven. However, there is no law under which action can be recommended, and the act of disappearance is also not criminalized yet. The government of Nepal is yet to sign and ratify the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance. All the cases registered during the war era have to be investigated and action needs to be taken. While the Maoists want to forget and forgive all the incidents and move on, action needs to be taken against perpetrators of violations in order to give closure to the proclaimed peace process. At the same time, victims must be the primary stakeholders in the search for long-term peace in a post-conflict society. For Nepal to move forward, it must heal, and for this to happen, victims of conflict may need to be taken aboard, their voices heard, and their demands met. Philippines enacted the Anti-Enforced or Involuntary Disappearance Act in 2012, being the first country in Asia to have such a law. Despite the law, however, involuntary disappearances continue, particularly of those criminal of state policies such as human rights workers, journalists and media persons, environmentalists, indigenous people, and lawyers. One such disappeared person is labor activist Benjamin Ben Villeno, 43, former president of a workers' union in Honda Cars Philippines and a labor federation affiliated with the May 1st movement. Benjamin was last heard from on 27 August 2013 when he sent an SMS informing his colleague that he was being followed by persons he believed to be a military man somewhere in Cavite. 3 years of fruitless searching later, his whereabouts are still unknown. Prominent NGO Karapatan documented 21 disappearances from July 2010 to June 2014. In Sri Lanka, Parliament Speaker Karus Jayasuriya has signed the bill establishing the Office of Missing Persons. The Parliament in Sri Lanka on August 11th passed a law to establish an office to trace people who disappeared during a 26-year war and another insurrection amid protests. The Office of Missing Persons will trace those disappeared during the war against the Tamil Rebellion and an armed revolt by a radical Marxist group against the government in 1987 to 1989. The Office on Missing Persons will also submit recommendations to authorities to take measures on missing persons, protect the rights of missing persons and their relatives, identify channels that missing persons and their relatives can obtain relief from, and inform them of the same. To learn more, Just Asia interviews Mr. Basil Fernando, Director for Policy and Program Development at the Asian Human Rights Commission.
the law relating to the Office of Missing Persons is now part of Sri Lanka's statute book, as it was passed in the parliament and the speaker has signed it. Now the next question is, when will the office begin to function? For the office to begin to function, there need to be persons who will act as its officers to be appointed in the proper manner. That's the first step. How soon will these persons will be appointed? That is what all those who are concerned, particularly the victims of disappearances, would want to know. The second question is that budgetary allocations must be made for the functioning of the office. A further step is that office must be situated somewhere. Whether it will be situated, where will it be situated, and will there be branches? For example, the persons from the north has already asked that there should be a branch office in the north, where according to them many disappearances have happened. Working of the commission is what the people want to see, and once they began to see, people who are interested would be able to participate by positive criticisms to help in the development of this office. The essential issue is now to begin the work, and we hope that this will be done as soon as possible. It is unfortunate that there are many laws in Sri Lanka which has been passed, but which are not in fact implemented due to this very reason of considering the passing of the statute itself as the achievement, and there have been no concern for the implementation of the law. One such instance is the Torture Act, which was passed in 1994 and which was not at all used till about 2002 or 3, but then even then it was used only for 1 or 2 few years, and then again that law has now not being implemented. The same can be said about the domestic violence law. That is also one of the laws that is in the book, but despite of many violations, even the women do not very much take to go into the police stations to complain, because a proper complaint procedure with security for the women who complain has not been established. What we would hope is that this law relating to the Office of Missing Persons will not suffer the same fate, and that we will be informed of the steps of implementation and the time schedule within which the office will begin to function.
That is all for this episode of Just Asia. For more on these and other issues, please visit www.humanrights.asia or www.alrc.asia/justasia. Thank you for watching and see you next week.